You're listening to the Creative Capital Podcast. You're dying to learn about how you can create wealth through real estate investing? Then you come to the right place. Join in every week as we go over the ins and outs of real estate investing and learn how you too can become financially free.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Ferrari, host of the Creative Capital Podcast. And guys, today, Mr. David Dodge is one who can really chat. He can really talk your ear off. He's got a lot of things going on in his head, a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience. He's been in the game about 16 years. Honestly, didn't even get started into wholesaling, what we really dive deep in today, until about 6 years ago. For the first 10 years, he was just buying some retail rental properties. And then it wasn't until 6 years ago when he actually found out that wholesaling was even a thing. And that was when he really dove deep into wanting to learn as much as he possibly could and really start wholesaling, start making money inside of wholesaling. And this one wholesale fee, this $440,000 wholesale fee he got on this one deal is absolutely phenomenal. I haven't met anyone that's made this kind of money on a wholesale fee. Honestly, once you start getting up to that higher tiered level of properties that you're getting under contract or that folks are sending you, you really start paying more attention to the fact of, do I actually want to buy this? You know, and you really get more slimmer, I guess you could say, on who your end buyer is going to be. He said the purchase price of this property, where they actually bought it at, was $4.5 million. I mean, how many real estate investors do you really know, just off the top of your head, that have $4.5 million they're looking to spend on 112 units? The buying pool really gets much slimmer the larger you get. So for me, I've always considered deals that large as, okay, if I'm going to entertain this, it needs to be something that we actually consider buying or that we consider partnering with someone else to buy. So I think he had a very interesting spin on it. He had a lot of good knowledge and information that he gave out to us about a deal that's this size, about what the intricacies of this are, how exactly this could work for someone like, the average wholesaler or either newbie wholesaler or even the really experienced wholesaler. What kind of your mindset needs to be around that, how you need to approach the conversation with the sellers and the buyers on things like these, how you can actually make something like this work. I think he ended up saying he had to do something like a double closing. So you get to learn what that is as well. And it's really just a high level look at wholesaling as a whole. He even talks just a little bit about flipping, but mostly you're going to learn what exactly is wholesaling. What does that look like? What do I need to do to get into it? What is a motivated seller? Can I actually make a lot of money? What kind of money can I make? How long is it going to take for me to get started into this? How can I find deals? He dives into a lot of these things, and I cannot wait for you guys to hear today's episode. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the show. Welcome, David, to the Creative Capital Podcast. Excited to have you on here. I know we actually met through one of my team members, reached out to you to get me on your show, and then we're doing a show swap here. Had a great time on your show and got to learn more about you. And you talked about this almost $500,000 wholesale fee. Unlike anything I ever heard before, wholesaling such a catastrophically high volume or high number fee there. So really wanted to get you on to talk about that, but also to learn more about you and kind of what you do. So for all the listeners out there, David, that don't really know who you are or what you do, tell us a little bit about yourself and then take us back all the way to what got you interested in real estate in the first place.
Joshua, I'd be happy to, man. I appreciate you having me on the show. I'm honored and really grateful for your time, man. Thank you so much. So, the 101 on me, I'll try to keep it short. I do talk a ton. I'm going to give you a warning here. So cut me off at any time. But I've been I'm 36 years old, man. I've been investing in real estate since I was 20. I went to college at University of Missouri in Columbia here in Missouri, where I grew up and live currently and do most of my investing. And in college, I started house hacking, man. Just what everybody typically wants to do when they're young, or, I did it. I ended up graduating college with 3 houses, and all of them are rentals. Still own them all to this day, actually. So I've been in the game for a minute, but I got in the game kind of the wrong way. I got in the game because I wanted to own a bunch of rental properties. And Joshua, if anyone's listening or watching, don't do what I did, right? That's kind of the one thing I really want to emphasize. And what I mean by that is I spent the first 10 years, of the last 16. So the majority of my investing career and the beginning of it, buying houses retail off the MLS, full price, like full retail off the MLS, paying an agent. And I know the agent's paid by the seller, but still, like, I was paying retail. And I know you're in a little bit different game than me in terms of, doing bigger apartment type deals that, have a little bit different play on things. I'm mostly in the single family space. But again, I spent the first 10 years doing it wrong. And in fact, I only was able to acquire about 12 houses in the first 10 years, basically buying about one a year. And then about 6 years ago, Josh, I learned about this thing called wholesaling and motivated sellers, and that there were these people out there that you could reach out to directly and you didn't need an agent. Like, this is crazy to me, right? And they were motivated to sell you their house, meaning they would give you a big discount if you could do something for them. And really, what is it? It's just give them convenience. Just help them, like just solve some problems, like pay cash, close fast, and little to no inspections are basically the things that we pitch when we're on an appointment. But in exchange, we demand a discount, right? And dude, long story short, I've been doing this full time for probably 6 years at this point. And my company, my team and I, we've wholesaled probably close to or over 700 houses, I would say at this point, somewhere around the 700 mark. And, what we do at this point is we just really focus on direct to seller marketing. And the goal for us is, getting good deals. So we're typically buying about 100 deals a year, 100 houses a year. And, we're only buying like 3 or 4% on the MLS. Basically, any agent that knows that we're an investor and knows that we don't pay retail, but they have a seller that's motivated and it's listed, that's kind of how those happen. But like 97%, 95%, right? Or more of the houses that we're buying are direct to seller marketing. So to finish that though, my passion's landlording. Like, that's what I did for the first 10 years, right? And at this point in the game, we cherry pick the best. And we have a simple little saying around the office: keep the best, wholesale everything else, wholesale the rest. Keep the best, wholesale the rest. That's very simple. And, basically all the marketing we do is for our own rentals and our own fix and flips. And if it meets our criteria, we'll cherry pick it and keep it. And if it doesn't, then we'll wholesale it. And that's kind of how I fell into wholesaling. It was never something I really wanted to do as a main gig. But it's just so incredibly simple to wholesale, Josh. Like, it's just so easy to do it, especially if you've done the networking and you have, a decent pool of buyers and you just come across somebody that's willing to sell at a discount. You can use, and for all those that don't know what wholesaling is, it's nothing more than using contracts to control properties and selling the contract. You're not actually buying and selling any property at all. It's a paperwork game, right? You use paperwork to control it and then you sell the paperwork. And that's what wholesaling is. And again, we've done about 700 deals. We've just kind of stumbled into them. Honestly, it's crazy. We're looking for rentals and flips. That's really what we're doing. And we stumble into these wholesales. And then, like you mentioned, we did a huge deal. It was 440,000 gross profits, almost $500,000 after all the costs and expenses. And we had to pay a bunch of partners out on this most recent one. And we just closed it. I think it was maybe in February, and it's May. So it was a few months back. But it ended up being a 440,000 gross deal that we can jump into here in a few. And we ended up netting 330. So, wholesaling, it doesn't have to be on the little crappy house that's 60 grand that, is out in the country. You can do this with packages of homes. You can do it with apartment complexes. And in fact, there was multiple apartment complexes in this particular package. So again, thanks for having me. That's kind of the 101, man. It started about 16 years ago and I did it wrong for the first 10.
David, that's insane. Your whole story is, it's come full circle back from when you initially were in college getting started house hacking. All the way back to the house hacking. Now you're making nearly $500,000 doing wholesales. You've wholesaled, what'd you say, 700 deals?
Got a cat in the background here. Yeah, about 700 at this point, which is crazy.
It's insane. And so I wanted to dive a little deeper into, I guess, what the goal is now. So, you're doing all the wholesalings, you're still flipping a little bit. And I know you're starting to really grow your rental portfolio. So what's kind of the end goal?
Josh, the goal is to get 150 plus properties. I was up to about 80, about this time last year. The market started heating up. At the time, currently today, I have one partner and then a lot of employees and staff, right? But a year ago, I had two partners. And, it was just kind of the perfect storm. Not only did I only have a third of the business, but we had also used lines of credit to acquire. And, it's one of these things where it's like, oh, we're going to borrow 100 grand to buy this one and get a loan, and then we'll refinance it in 3 or 4 months and pull that 100 grand out and pay the line back. What ends up happening is when you go do that, and then there's another deal there, that money never gets paid back. So long story short, we had built up like $1 million worth of line of credit debt, which is kind of bad. It's bad debt, in my opinion. It's not directly correlated, right? So it was a kind of a perfect storm, man. One of my partners wanted to exit and he was, getting ready to retire, was in his 60s. And we had all this bad debt. And we said, you know what, let's pull back the reins and let's get in a better position. So essentially we went from about 85 houses. I'm down to about maybe 40, 45 right now, somewhere in that range. So we sold off about half the portfolio. But again, we were able to get him out and happy, and he still lends to us. So it wasn't like a bad exit. And we paid off all of our bad debt, all of our credit cards, all of our lines of credit. And here's the coolest part, Josh. We use the BRRRR method to basically get into the majority of these. Sorry, I can't talk sometimes. And when we first started, we were leaving 20, 30 grand, maybe not 30 grand, but 20 grand in a deal, 15 grand in a deal. And then after 6 months to a year, then we're only leaving like, 8 or 10 grand into a deal. And now after doing this full time, the BRRRR method side of things for probably going on 4 years, written a book called the BRRRR method, teaching people how to do it. At this point, with my experience and my relationships with my local bankers, I leave no money in the deal. And in fact, sometimes I'll walk with a couple grand. I don't even want it, right? But it's just the way it works out when they go to close. It's just crazy. It's unbelievable. So now it's like one of these things where, I took a couple steps back, went from 85 to call it 45. But now I know how to get back to 150, 200, maybe even 300 properties with none of my own money, right? So we do use the BRRRR method. We purchase with private lenders. We also borrow the rehab from them. So we're 100% leveraged on the acquisition. But what we do is we always buy at a discount, like we had mentioned with wholesaling, always, no matter what. I haven't paid retail for a property other than the one I'm sitting in because it's my personal residence in 6 years. And I've bought in over 700 properties. But here's the coolest thing. That's what I tell all my students too, Josh. I didn't need any one of those. I don't need any house. Even when somebody calls me today and they're like, hey, I got your postcard or saw your ad online. It's like, cool. Here's the deal. I'm an investor. I don't pay retail. I don't need to buy it. I'm going to be straightforward with you. And some people are like, holy shit, like you're very frank. And I'm like, yeah, because here's the deal. I don't need it. But for the right price, I would love to buy it from you. I demand a discount in exchange for all the conveniences that I offer. Why on earth would I want to pay somebody retail? Guys, this is a business. And if you know the definition of business, it's literally the act of making money. I tell it to sellers. Hey, I'm doing this for a profit. So at my number, we can make this work. Yeah. So long story short, went from 85 houses to 45 and got one of my partners paid off, Josh. I got all my bad debt taken care of. I now have the ability, the education, and the networking at this point, and network, I should say, to be able to plow right back to where I was within a year or two, and then keep going up to 150, 200, and use none of my own money. That's the coolest part. I mentioned purchase and rehab, right, on the buy, but to finish the BRRRR strategy, for those who don't know, B with 4 R's, right? Buy, renovate, which is the 2 things that I borrowed the money for, and then the next 2 are simple. It's just rent out and then refinance. And the last R is repeat. But that's basically what we're doing. So because we're buying all these at a discount and we're adding value typically in our rehab, Josh, and our rehab on average for our rentals is about 15 to 18 grand. Usually, I'd say closer to 18. All right. And we've done this 100 times. I've done the BRRRR method 100 times, bro. Literally. But not all of them we keep. Some of these will sell turnkey as once they're rented because you can basically get full market value, ARV, right? For a newly renovated house with a tenant paying top of market or even above market. So not everyone was kept. A lot of these were sold off turnkey, but that's kind of the goal and where I'm headed, man. I want to get back to, over 100 properties, or I should say get there. And I'll never stop wholesaling though along the way, because if a deal falls in my lap and it's a good deal and it meets my criteria, Josh, I'm keeping it. We're going to rent it. We're going to fix and flip it, or we're going to fix it and rent it and sell it turnkey. But if it doesn't, but it's still a deal, like it doesn't meet my criteria, right? But it's still a deal. Boom, we're going to wholesale that. We have the hundreds of buyers beating down our door looking for that next deal. Not everybody is very interested in spending lots of time direct to seller marketing. And that's really how you position yourself as a successful wholesaler. And it's funny because we look at ourselves as successful wholesalers, but that's not even the goal. Like, it's a means to an end, if you think about it.
So there was just a lot there.
Sorry if I threw a lot at you.
And I don't think we'll have time to cover everything, but I wanted to dive back in, since we're really talking about wholesaling today. I wanted to dive back into the seller side of wholesaling. So you basically got two sides. And you get the sale contract and then the end buyer's contract. So on the sell side, you said you found out 6 years ago about these motivated sellers and the fact that you could go straight to them and get these awesome deals, right? And just handle with some paperwork. So who are these motivated sellers? Where are you finding them? How do you know that they exist? To give us a little
great question. Great question. Okay. So you have probably heard all over the internet from gurus, and you might even hear it out of my mouth occasionally. People say you can flip houses with little to no money. And here's the deal, guys. That's true. It's in fact 100% true. Here's the catch that nobody typically likes to add. I do. And that's why I'm saying this to everybody here, is here's how that statement should really be worded. You can flip houses with little to none of your own money if you are willing to spend time and or money on marketing. People forget that last sentence. So what that means is you're going to need to spend a lot of time, in some cases, a lot of time and money marketing to these motivated sellers. So who are these people, Josh? That was your question. Well, it's simple. People that have had recent experiences in their life that would make them need to sell. I don't typically want to buy a house from somebody that wants to sell. I typically am there to help those who need to sell. So what does that look like? Death, divorce, disease, tired landlord, vacant house, mom or grandma's moving into a nursing home, hoarders, somebody gutted the property and then didn't ever get around to fixing it. I mean, typically the bigger the problem, the easier it is for me to come in and help solve a problem. If somebody has a very nice house that's clean and it doesn't need any work, like they would be a fool to sell it to me, right? At like a 50% discount. I mean, I'm typically trying to buy houses at around 50 to 60 cents on the dollar. And the way that I'm able to do that is by adding value to the property after I buy it and knowing that there's an issue there. Can I get a deal on a house that doesn't need any work that I can go rent and maybe pay 75 to 80 cents on the dollar? Yeah, of course. But if the house needs a ton of work, you can typically get the numbers even better, and you can buy it at about 50 cents on the dollar. Now you have to add to it. But the cool part is when you're adding to it with your expense and your rehab, you're also adding value too. So it's just kind of one of those win-wins. So these leads come in lots of shapes and forms. Death, divorce, and disease typically make up the majority of them. But it's really just anybody that's distressed, right? They have a property. Vacant is huge, Josh. I would say we buy about 100 houses a year. 70 of them, 70%, give or take, are vacant when we buy them, right? The other 30% could be the sellers moving out once they sell it to us, or there could be tenants in place, or in some cases, squatters. I mean, we buy problems, but in exchange for the convenience that we offer, we demand the discount. So hopefully I touched on that a little bit. But what I was beginning that with is, you can flip houses with little to no money. The caveat, if you're willing to invest time and or money into marketing. And that's the thing. So if I bring you a motivated seller anywhere in the United States right now, and you can get it at a good deal, and I also have a buyer in my back pocket that I say this guy will buy it from. Josh, anybody listening, watching, can do this wholesale deal typically with none of their own money. They basically get a contract with the seller. and then they sell the contract to the buyer via an assignment, or they can do a double close, right? A couple different options on how they can sell it. There's pros and cons to both of those different strategies. We're not getting into it, but that's how you would essentially do that, right? The catch though is how do you find the person that's willing to sell you a property at 50 cents on the dollar? That's where the marketing comes in. That's where the time and money having set aside in budgets. And again, I tell my students, you got to have both. You got to have an allocation of time, an allocation of money to put towards marketing efforts. And if you don't have a ton of one of those, then the other one needs to be really big. You either need to have a lot of time for a little bit of money or a lot of money for very little amounts of time, because you can then outsource and automate those marketing methods. But you got to market. So for anybody listening at this point, you've learned who these people are. Now, how do you get a hold of them, guys? Time and money invested into marketing. What does that look like? Driving for dollars, door knocking, pulling lists online and skip tracing those lists, then cold calling those lists, cold texting those lists, sending out postcards, putting bandit signs in the ground or on telephone poles, building a website and running ads to that site, getting on the radio, maybe getting a billboard. I mean, there's literally hundreds of ways to let the general public in the area know that you are interested in buying houses. And the more rundown and shitty they are, the better for you, because the better deal that you can get. But you also got to think too, neighborhoods in general like investors, because when people in the neighborhood get behind and the house starts to deteriorate and it becomes distressed and they can't keep up on it and they sell it to an investor at a discount, we come in and fix it up and get it occupied again, make the area safer. So if you think about it, right, like wholesalers, or really just real estate investors in general, but specifically wholesalers, we're the liquidity makers in the market. Where else can you turn around and get cash for your house in 2 weeks? You're not going to be able to do that by walking into Keller Williams. That's a whole different process. That's going to take months and cost a ton of money. Us investors and wholesalers, we are the liquidity makers. So we come in and we're able to buy these properties at a discount. But the whole idea, Josh, is to always create winning scenarios. And typically it's a 3-win scenario. When I go buy a property and I turn around and I sell it before I even have to pay for it, like I use a contract to contract it and get it under contract and have control. And then I market that contract and that property to one of my buyers and I sell it to them, right? I've created multiple wins. I've done this because this is a business for me and I'm making money doing it. So boom, win. Getting paid. Sellers selling a problem. Win. Buyers getting a good discount on its next rehab, fix and flip, or rental property. So as a wholesaler, really our job is to find great deals and turn around and sell them to our buyers at good deals. And we make the spread between great and good. It's really that simple. We can't take all the meat off the bone, because then it's not a good deal anymore. No one's going to want to buy it from us, right? But there are ways to get healthy $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 wholesale fees. Or in the case of my most recent deal, the big deal, I should say, because we're doing multiple a month. But my most recent deal, a package of basically around 112 units, consisted of a 30-unit apartment complex, a 10-unit apartment complex, 50 individual houses, and a handful of duplexes and quads, right? Just a big package of properties. But we contracted it for about $4.5 million. And we found a buyer, multiple buyers actually, to buy all of these units from us in multiple different ways of exiting it. It made almost $500,000, right? And it was all just by controlling paperwork. So personally, I don't ever like buying a house or paying for it, I should say, when I'm flipping it. I want to control it. I want to own nothing but control everything. The flip side, though, is obviously when we're cherry picking, we want to own those rentals. And then, of course, when we're doing our fix and flips, of course, we want to own those as well, too. So that's kind of really the name of the game, man. It's direct to seller marketing. It's having a budget of time and money set aside to contact these people. That's the hardest part. Once you get a motivated seller and you know what you're doing, you can flip that property and help that person and create multiple winning scenarios and get paid. And you don't have to use any of your own money in most cases. So again, can you flip houses, Josh, with little to none of your money? Yes, that's 100% true. But what everyone else is neglecting, my friend, it's the lead. Getting the lead's the hard part. If you hand me a good lead on a saucer, boom, we can make money and we don't have to spend any money. It'll be easy. But it sometimes means calling hundreds, if not thousands of people via cold calling, or driving around, marking all the bad properties in the neighborhood and driving for dollars and then taking that back and sending all those people a postcard, or having an ad on television, radio, billboards. I mean, again, there's so many different ways. But here's the thing. Most people think that the wholesaling business, Josh, is a real estate investing business, and it's not. The wholesaling business is, in fact, a marketing business. And the sooner you learn that, the better, because then you won't just sit around thinking that you're not being productive when you go look at 2 or 3 houses. It's like, that's not marketing, So I tell that to a lot of the students as well that join our program, is that, understand first and foremost, this is the marketing business. That's how you get the leads. The leads then, once you get 20 or 30 leads, hopefully one of them is motivated enough to make a deal. At that point, you can wholesale that and then start all over again, or you can decide to keep it as a rental or fix it. And that's really when the investing begins. The first part is just marketing.
I love how you're basically answering every question I have before it's asked.
Before you ask it?
since all the most of the questions have been answered now, I really wanted to dive back into
Let's do it.
The big deal, the one that everyone has come to the show to hear about, the $440,000 wholesale deal. Give us all the nitty-gritty details.
So
beginning to the end.
Absolutely, man. So check this out. This is a fantastic case study here, right? So I have been buying, 1, 2, 3 house packages since I started full-time 6 years ago. And, the first year or two, it was like 40 or 50 houses that we would buy or even wholesale. But towards the last, 3 or 4 years, we've been averaging about 100 houses a year. And we haven't really set that as a goal really per se. I mean, it's really closer to like, 92 or 96 or something along those lines, right? But long story short, we're doing about 100 houses in a year. And some of these are being kept, again, cherry picked for rentals and our own personal flips. And, most of them don't meet our criteria, or we don't want to deal with the problem, and we wholesale them. So one of my buddies, who is a big commercial broker in town, deals with lots of multifamily. He's over at CBRE. So it's like the big, the largest real estate company in the world, essentially. He does a lot of multifamily plays, and he had a customer or a client who ended up being a local university. And the university has, their main headquarters actually probably, 15 or 20 miles west of me, but they have a lot of these campuses. And one of these, remote campuses ended up being about 30 miles east of me in like the opposite direction. And they had this whole campus, and they basically were going to shut down this campus because it wasn't generating enough revenue. And over the last 15, 20 years that they had that as a campus, they had slowly acquired a bunch of property that was residential property that they had kind of converted into dorms. So these were all student housing basically last year. Now, here's the tough part. When you're buying packages of property or multi-units, you typically want to see income day one because you have debt service day one. You're borrowing the money from somebody, assuming you're closing on it, right? So, not having any income on a $4.5 million package is tough, right? And the reason that it was all vacant, Josh, is because they knew that they weren't going to keep this campus going. And they canceled all the classes for, I guess, what would it be, the spring or the fall? I don't know, whatever it is. And they have all these places vacant. So it ended up being like 42 houses, give or take. There was a 30-unit apartment building in there, a 10-unit apartment building, 6 or 8 duplexes. There was like a 6-family and a couple 4 families. And then there was like 3 random vacant lots. And we basically came in and got these properties at about, 60 cents on the dollar. And the reason that we were able to get such a good deal is because we were going to buy all of them. They were vacant and they all needed some work. Like they had gone into some of these big houses, Josh, like on Main Street in this little town where this campus was at. And it might have been a 4 or 5 bedroom house, like an older type of home. And they would put 2 bunks in one of the bigger rooms and basically have 10, 11, 12 kids living in one of these houses. So it was all student housing. But again, one of my buddies who was a broker, it was his client. He came to me, Josh, and he said, "Hey, Dave, I know you're buying like 100 houses a year the last couple of years. Why not buy 100 houses in one transaction? And I was just kind of like, bro, I don't know. Like this is probably above my pay grade. And like I had self-doubt. I still do. And it's just like, I don't know, man. And he kept telling me, this is a really good deal. You should look at this. You should dive into this. You should look at this. And long story short, we did. We dove in and we saw there was a ton of value and put it under contract. Had to put up about 50,000 right away. That was non-refundable. But we had 60 days to find partners or buyers. And in the beginning, we were thinking that we would keep a part of this package and sell off just kind of like the majority of it, maybe keep 30-40% of it for ourselves. And as we started marketing the property, we had more buyers than there was units. And before we knew it, 100% of the package was accounted for. And we're like, well, shit, I guess we'll just get out of the way and wholesale this. In a perfect world with this particular deal or with any wholesale deal, you use paper and you don't use any of your own money. In this particular deal, there was hiccup after hiccup after hiccup and problem after problem after problem. And we basically had to go like the week of closing and borrow $3 million for 2 weeks because one of our buyers couldn't fund. And in order for us to get the deal, we couldn't just buy 2 or 3 houses. It was one contract to purchase, even though we had 5 or 6 contracts to sell. So we were in a bind, but so what? And that's really what brought the price from 440 or the gross from 440 down to the 330 net is we had to pay all these lenders. We had to pay closing costs. We had to pay title transaction fees, insurance to hold these stupid things for 2 weeks, so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, Josh, we didn't give up and we knew that it would work, but there was just that gap. We still ended up making $332,000. That was the net number. And we didn't have any of our own money invested. We borrowed money and had some risk, but we didn't have any of our own money invested. So again, the takeaway is, you can go buy a real contract, a real crappy $20, $30, $40, $50,000 house and wholesale it, guys. But you can also do this with commercial buildings, apartment buildings, packages of buildings, right? This was actually purchased from a university. Right. And then we turned around and wholesaled it to a couple different people. But I just love the wholesaling game, Josh. It's just one of my favorite things because, again, it's really not my end goal, but everything else that comes in, like, think of it this way. If I only cherry pick deals and I just threw away every lead that came in over the last 6 years and didn't wholesale it, that would have been 700 different opportunities to not make money. Right. So it just makes sense to always have that in your back pocket. And it's incredibly easy to learn. In fact, I have built a free course on it, Josh. So if people are interested in learning about the course, it's free. It's freewholesalecourse.com. And that's really the only promotion that I got for you guys today. It's a free offering. I wish that I would have learned about wholesaling 16 years ago versus 6 years ago, and that I wouldn't have wasted the first 10 years doing it wrong. And so I just kind of wanted to give back. I have a lot of people that are constantly asking, how do you do it? How do you get in the game? Where do you start with your marketing? And we built that course probably about 4 years ago, and we've already had about 30,000 people take it. So it's a phenomenal course. Everyone loves it and gives us 5 stars. And the coolest part about it, guys, is it's 100% free.
Free, bro. I think one thing that I really liked about this 112 unit deal is the seller. The seller is a university. I mean, How many times have you heard, because you mentioned distressed sellers and a lot of people mention things like that. And you mentioned, a lot of people think that they're looking for maybe this institutional individual, or maybe they're looking for mom and pop over here. They're looking for someone that's gotten a divorce. You mentioned a disease, all these other things. But how many times have we really thought, this could be a freaking university? Like, this could be the president of the United States. Like, this could be some crazy seller that's got access to all these homes and needs. And so I wanted to ask you, like,
sellers come in all shapes and sizes, my friend.
Do you still have like a relationship with the university? Like,
No, I never did. That's the craziest part, because they had it listed. So this was actually a listed property, but here's the caveat there. It wasn't on the local MLS. It was listed through CBRE's network of higher level investors, to where if you went and Googled any of these addresses, you wouldn't find any marketing material. Like, they were basically listing it on places where the average investor wouldn't even stumble across it. And if it wasn't for my friend who brought me the deal, I would have never learned about it. So, I mean, can you get free leads? I did in this case via networking. And I tell that, again, it's something I really, really preach highly to all my, personal listeners and viewers and even students is networking is such an important part of investing, right? You got to get out. You got to let everybody know that you're in this business. Don't keep your business a secret, guys. Like some people are thinking like, oh, that's obvious. But like, think about that. Like if nobody knows that you're looking for an apartment, Josh, how are you going to find one? Ever. Like tell everybody, get on the tallest roof and scream it. Let everybody know what your business is. It's so incredibly stupid not to, because it's free to do so. Right.
Yeah.
And the more networking you do, the bigger your network will become, the bigger your net worth will eventually become because of your network. I promise you that. And yeah, just having the network is buyers, and essentially it's partners and buyers. One of the things I truly strongly believe in, and I don't want to go too long, so cut me off if you need to, but like I don't have any competitors. I have 0 competitors. Everybody that's either in my local market is a strategic partner. Like I don't look at them as a competitor. I've changed my mindset completely. I've reframed it. These are strategic partners that I could essentially beat them to the deal and then just turn around and sell to them and just be the middleman, right? Or people that can joint venture with me on deals. Like I don't really specialize in creative financing or lease option, but I know guys that do, and I may want to rehab it. And instead of having to go borrow $150,000 to buy it and then another 60 to rehab it, I may bring in a partner and be like, hey, go figure out the sub 2 or the lease option to where we can just get control of this property for 6 months. I'll spend my money fixing it, and then everybody gets a win when we sell it. So again, there's lots of different ways to partner. You don't have any competitors, guys. You have strategic partners, period. It's just the way it is. And that's just in my local investing market. When it comes to, podcasting and nationwide stuff, just building your network is just so incredibly valuable. It pays 10x returns.
I love that you mentioned that. It was actually literally today, probably about 2 hours ago, I had my wife's best friend's brother all the way back from Memphis, Tennessee, call me out of the blue. He didn't even have my phone number. He had to get it from my wife's best friend to tell me that he's got this apartment deal that his buddy told him about that is in Memphis that I need to look at, and it's off market, and it's and he's not even in real estate. Like he didn't really know much about it. He just knew his buddy's been in real estate for a while, and he's like, I've been seeing your stuff on social media. I know you're into this, but I don't know if this is like your wheelhouse. I'm like, well, appreciate you, letting me know about it.
So you're obviously doing a great job of making sure that everyone knows what your business is. That's the thing, right? So,
right.
When I first started, I wasn't getting any referrals. And then after 2 or 3 years, I'm getting, maybe 1 a quarter. Now we get like, I would say 1 a week would be, an exaggeration, but like at least 1 or 2 a month of people being like, hey, my grandma's going into a nursing home. Do you want to buy her house? And my response is so funny because I'm not like the sales guy. I don't ever try to sell somebody on why they should work with me. I take a different approach. I disqualify myself and let them sell me on why they should work with me. So it's funny because like I was saying earlier, I'm really frank, but whenever we do get these referrals or these leads from friends or family or friends of friends, I typically tell them, hey, I'm probably not going to be the buyer for this. They probably want more than what I'm willing to offer, and I don't need it. But if their asking price is similar to where I'd be willing to offer, let's get the deal done. I can do it quick. We can close in 2 weeks. And I'll do my own inspections that day or maybe that day and one other day. It'd be really, really, really simple. Right. So again, we do offer that a lot of convenience in exchange for these discounts, but I like to disqualify myself. I've never considered myself to be a good salesperson. Right. Instead, I just go in and I just tell them the facts. A, I don't need to buy this shitty house. B, I would love to, though, in the event that I can get a good deal on it. And this is a business for me. So with that being said, let's figure out what the repairs are. Let's figure out what the after repair value is, run it through a simple little formula to get my offer price. And if that works for you, it also works for me, then boom, we can get this deal done.
David, one last piece of advice before we jump into the next segment of the show here. For all the listeners out there wanting just a sliver of a piece of that 112 unit deal, what parting advice do you have for them wanting to get started in not real estate as a whole, but wholesaling specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, I mean, it's a couple points, guys, but I'll go quick. Number one, understand from the get-go, out the gate, right away, today, that wholesaling is a marketing business, period, right? Can you convert it into investments? Absolutely. But the business itself is marketing. So don't just go driving around trying to go to open houses thinking you're an investor. Like, start marketing. What does that look like? Getting your phone to ring or ringing other people's phones. And again, I mentioned a ton of things, Josh, on, what marketing is and how you can do it. At the end of the day, all of those things, even if it's a radio advertisement, leads to a phone call. That's the goal, is to get sellers on the phone, make friends, run appointments, and make offers, right? So if you're wanting to get into the wholesaling game, just know that. I would say that's the most important thing. Everything else can be learned or taught, and start marketing. From there, there's three things that matter when it comes to wholesaling: marketing, making offers, and following up. You can't even do the second two if the first one's not getting done, right? So start making offers to anybody and everybody that you talk to. And those offers should be low, by the way, like embarrassingly low. And then beyond that is follow up with all those prospects. You spent a bunch of time and money marketing and even more time making offers to people. Don't let those deals fall by the wayside. Following up is really where the money's at. And to end on this note, Josh, our average deal that we're able to purchase to wholesale takes 4 to 6 months from the original day that we talked to the seller to the time that we're able to purchase it from them. 4 to 6 months. Do deals come in today and we can get them done next Tuesday? Yeah, of course. But those are the rare ones. That's like once a month type of thing. The average deal, we're a little slower right now than our averages, but we're probably doing, 8 or 10 deals a month right now on average. The average one is 4 to 6 months. So what does that mean? That means the lead came in 4 to 6 months ago, and we either made them an offer or set up an appointment or just said, you're not ready to sell or we're not ready to buy. And we follow up. And every 2 or 3 weeks, we have a virtual assistant and a whole team of people. And they call and they text and they send messages and they send voicemails and they send emails. And we follow up. And eventually what happens is we catch them on the right day where they say, you know what? I am done dealing with this problem. And I know I'm going to leave 30 grand on the table. But I like David and his team. And I know he's not doing this for free. This is a profit business for him. And I got to leave some meat on the bone for him. And I'm still getting my problem solved. And boom, that's when deals connect, just like that. So this is a marketing business.
It's so crazy that you mentioned that, because a lot of people think about the motivated seller. They think that their reason for motivation is, once they get them on the phone, like, okay, this person, like, I can tell this person's motivated. They're going to sell immediately. They just had a death, or they just had this, or they just had that. So I'm going to be able to get this awesome deal. My lowball offer is going to be good to go. And just like you said, then they're not going to follow up if they just say no, because like, whatever, who cares?
Yeah. What percentage of the time do you think the seller is going to call you back?
But takes,
come on, it's like 10%, right. 5%. You have to call them back. Hey, I haven't talked to you in 3 weeks. I offered you 217 grand. You were asking 260. I'm sorry to tell you that I can't really come up any, but my 217 is still sitting here burning a hole in my pocket. Are you ready? And then they say, well, Dave, I know I was asking 260. I can do 250. And I'm like, I'm at 217. And then you call them back in 3 weeks. I mean, now I'm obviously exaggerating, having fun here, right? But like, I'm not coming up anything. Like, this is where we're at. And you call them back and you call them back and you call them back. And there was a really funny one I'm going to tell. It's a super quick story. But this is how it works. Motivated sellers, they get motivated very rapidly, and then they look for a solution. So you got to be there to solve the problem when they're ready. You're always ready. But here's a perfect example. It doesn't snow a whole lot in St. Louis where I live, but it will snow, 1 or 2 days a year, and it may or may not stick it even, right? I called this lady originally, and she was asking like 80 grand for a condo, and I offered her like 50, right? Like almost half. And she was like, no. I called her a month later. Hey, I can still pay 50. She's like, I'm still at 80. Called her another month later. She's like, I could probably go to 70. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm still at 50. And then it snowed. It was that one day a year that it snowed. And I was just so happened to be at my desk calling sellers. And I called her. And she's like, man, this is just icing on the cake. I've been trying to convince my husband to move to Florida, and it's freaking snowing outside. And she's like, I'm just going to start selling stuff, and hopefully that'll get the message across to him. And I'm like, cool, sell me the condo at 50 grand. She's like, deal. It was just, that was the right day. It was her day, right? So it's all about being there when they're ready. And that's where the follow-up comes in. Are you going to get that call every time? No, of course. That's just such a random event. But I ended up being able to buy the property worth 80 grand for 50, and it was already rented. So I was like, boom, cherry pick, keep it. Still own it to this day. That was like 6 months ago.
I love how she's selling it for 50 in spite of her husband. Like,
yeah, she's like, I want to go to Florida, and if I can start selling any reason to stay in the Midwest, he's not going to want to go. So I'm sure that wasn't fun, the conversation between the two. But at the end of the day, bro, I solved a problem for her. When I got an excellent deal on a condo that I could sell tomorrow and make 25 to 30 grand on, right? And it's rented. So again, it's just, you just got to create these winning scenarios. So just know this is a marketing business. Marketing, making offers, following up are the three elements, and they're really all equally important, but they all have a sequence as well. And if you guys want to learn how to wholesale, check out freewholesalecourse.com. That's it. It's that simple.
All right. We're going to jump now into the next segment of the show called the Pod Deck segment. I don't know if you ever heard of this company. It's just literally called Pod Decks. They make the decks of cards with questions on the back of them.
Cool.
So this is going to be like pick a card, any card. You're going to tell me when to stop. We're going to pick two, and then whatever the heck is on the back of the card, that is going to be your question.
Hell yeah, that sounds like fun. Let's do it. All right, you ready?
Stop.
All right, good. Go right now. Stop. I'm saying go and stop. I got it all mixed up. All right, stop. Boom. 2 questions.
Boom.
Let's do it.
I'm about to shoot them off at you. What is the oddest job you've ever taken to earn a buck?
Oh man, the oddest job I've ever taken to learn. You know what? I mean, honestly, it was walking in when I first started 6 years ago. It was walking into random real estate offices and just saying, hey, I'm here to work. I don't want any money. I want to learn. And most people would turn me away, but there was a couple people that was like, here, I'm folding mail right now. Come on in. And I'd sit there and I'd do odd jobs for free. But I wasn't just doing these jobs. I was sitting there talking to the owners of these companies, asking them, how do I become you? What do I need to do to become you? And now I am the owner of the company, right? So it's like, I think the answer to that question is really just kind of volunteering, but doing it in the approach of getting knowledge out of it, right? Like there's one approach. Hey, can I buy you a coffee and pick your brain? Or there's this approach. Hey, when are you going to be at your office next? I'm going to come in and I'm going to help you for free. I'm going to get the same knowledge doing both those tasks. It's how you frame it. You know, when somebody says, hey, Dave, can I pick your brain? No, absolutely not. That's usually my answer because it's time consuming and I got to go meet somebody. But if they want to provide value to me first, then it's a no-brainer. I'll tell you everything I know, but help me fold these freaking envelopes in the meantime.
Oh, you were going to say something like someone said they'd pay you like $20 if you ate like poisonous scorpion.
No, not me, bro. I'm not that guy. All right. Number two. All
right. Last question. What is the most annoying bill that you have to pay?
Oh, man. I was thinking right out the gate insurance because I have 49 policies with my company, but I have had a house burned down and I got 140 grand from the insurance. So I was going to lead with that, but I'm not going to actually use that. I'd say the most annoying bill, let's be real, it's the biggest bill, taxes. Nobody wants to pay taxes. Everybody hates taxes. I literally went to my accountant's office this morning to drop them off, and we're recording this on May 4th. So I'm behind the gun. I usually am. Here's the thing about taxes, Josh, just real quick. Most people think their taxes are about a third, and they're not wrong when they're talking about just the income tax, right? But here's another catch, guys. Every time you buy something, you pay state sales tax, assuming your state charges it, which is 95% of the states. Anytime you want to go own something like a piece of property or a boat or a plane or a trailer or an RV, you got to pay an annual tax to own it. When you go fill up at the gas pump, you're paying gas tax. When you die, there's an estate tax in some cases. I mean, your real effective tax at the end, I mean, you're not just taxed whenever you buy or whenever you earn, guys. You're taxed when you spend too. And really your effective tax rate is close to 50%. It truly is. So I would say that's the most annoying bill. You see it everywhere. You can't escape it. It's everywhere.
You can't escape taxes. All right, love it. Okay, jumping now into the last segment of the show called the Core Four. Same 4 questions we ask every guest. First question is, what is your favorite real estate related book?
Oh man, there's so many of them. I would say the one I wrote on wholesaling. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Wholesaling Real Estate. It's on Amazon and Audible. It's literally everything I do in my business, teaches you how to market. And here's the deal, guys. Even if you don't want to be a wholesaler, I don't really want to be a wholesaler, and I'm doing 8 or 10 deals a month. You need to learn the principles of marketing because no one's going to hand you a home run deal on a silver platter. It just doesn't happen. You have to learn how to market to find those deals.
Doesn't happen. Okay, next question. What do you think your unique skill is that helped you become successful?
Oh, that's the easiest question you've asked me all day. It's getting up, bro. Getting up. I get knocked down every day, multiple times a day, hard sometimes, bleeding, wanting to cry. I get up and I just keep going, right? That's truly my ultimate power. It's the fact that I am just super persistent. So guys, don't give up. Keep going. You got this.
You got this. All right. Next question. Tell me something that's true about real estate that almost nobody agrees with you on.
You can flip houses with little to no money.
I feel like a lot of people agree with that though, right?
They do, right? But they don't necessarily agree with the fact that I get upset with people when they say that because yes, you can. In fact, that's true. But that's a sales pitch to get people to buy a course or a program. Be transparent and let them know that you can do that, but you have to put a ton of time and a ton of money, and typically both, into marketing channels to find those leads. So yes and no.
Yeah, my parents paid $40,000 for a flipping course that they thought was going to get them.
And I'm sure they learned a ton. I've probably spent close to $200,000 on courses, coaches, masterminds. I even did the Rich Dad program back like 7 or 8 years ago. It was like $7,000. And I learned a ton. I don't regret it. I mean, could I have learned that in a book for $42? Yeah. Or $20? Yeah, I could, but I didn't. And I learned it from those people. So yeah, education's always going to be a good thing, right? It's just, there's ways to avoid, spending crazy amounts of money when you can learn the same stuff from podcasts like this or YouTube University or books. Guys, books are really the most valuable resource there is when it comes to learning a new skill. I mean, truly.
Right. 10, $20 to get in the mind of a millionaire.
$20 to get in the mind of in some case, billionaire, right? Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Sweet. Last question. And you already touched on this a little bit, but what one piece of advice would you give to our listeners wanting to succeed in real estate investing?
I love it. I love this. This is a really, really good question. So the one piece of advice would be this: be patient while being persistent. Don't expect you to get your first wholesale deal in a week or two. It took me 3 months. My average student's probably closer to 2 months. My partner was at 4 months, right? So be patient, but be persistent. Those are two different things, and you can do them simultaneously. Don't give up after a week or two. Know that it's going to take a couple months to get that first deal. Unless you have cash and you just want to go buy a fix and flip or buy a rental, find a wholesaler, right?
Yeah.
Avoid the market at all costs if you can, because you're going to be paying retail, right? So just be patient, but be persistent. You can't, this is also one of these things where the harder you work, the luckier you get. So after 2 or 3 months, you're just bound to fall into something, right? But again, you have to work at it though. You can't just do this business 1 day a week. Like I have some students that say, hey, I got 8 hours on Saturday. And I say, nope, I need to see 2 hours, 6 days a week or 5 days a week versus 1 8-hour shift. Here's why. Think of it this way. If you get sick this Saturday and you're going to a Cardinal or you're going to a fun outing with your friends the next Saturday, that means 3 weeks will go by without marketing happening. So instead of doing a big, long marketing push one day, break it into 30, 40 minutes a day or an hour a day or 2 hours every day. Because then if you get sick or you go to an outing, you're missing 1 day, not 1 week or 2 weeks or, so on and so forth. So another little side tip there. But yeah, be patient and be persistent, guys.
Yeah, it took me 2.5 years to get my first syndication. Definitely.
There you go.
Definitely need some patience.
Patience, bro. But look where you're at now. You guys are blowing up. You have a ton of properties under contract. I mean, you're truly one of the more impressive people that I've interviewed on my show. We have 260 episodes. And you're a young guy. What are you, 23, 24 years old, bro? You are extremely young. I feel old, and I'm only in my 30s, right? So keep at it, Josh. You're going to be doing big things, man. I know for a fact.
Appreciate it, man. David, if anybody wants to learn more about you and your business, how can people get in touch with you?
So I had mentioned freewholesalecourse.com. Guys, go there. It's free. That's a good place to start. Other than that, I have a couple books on Amazon, and you can learn about those over on my brand and my podcast, which is Discount Property Investor. So discountpropertyinvestor.com is the URL for that. And you can learn a little bit more about me over there, learn about my books, my podcast. And if you want to jump straight into wholesaling, guys, go check out freewholesalecourse.com.
It's been great, man. I know I've learned a ton about wholesaling specifically and more about your story, especially that one deal with the university seller.
And it's fun. Sometimes these big deals, they just fall in your lap, but here's the deal, Josh. Our average deal when we're wholesaling is typically only around $8,000. And, again, there's always a catch, right? It's because we usually cherry pick the best deals. So if we were wholesaling everything that came in the door, it would probably be double, maybe even triple that number. But the really, really good deals, we obviously want to keep. That's the passion, So on average, though, wholesales aren't going to be 330 or 440 gross, however you want to look at it. That's an anomaly, but shoot for, about 5 or 10 grand if you're getting started. And as you build your company and your experience and your buyers list, you can easily push that number up to 15, 20,000 on a consistent wholesale deal.
Love it, man. Appreciate you coming out on the show. I got a lot out of it. Hope the listeners did too. And go check David out if you're interested in wholesaling, or you've written a couple other books too, right? It's not just
so the Ultimate Guide to Wholesaling Real Estate was our first book. And then the BRRRR Method was our second book because, we got into this game by marketing direct to sellers and wholesaling. And then we decided, well, you know what, this isn't even what we want to do. We want to be landlords. So then we mastered the BRRRR Method, and I've done about 110, give or take, BRRRR flips where we'll buy, we'll renovate, we'll rent out, we'll refinance, and we'll repeat. And then the third book that we just recently released, it's more of a booklet. The first two books are 280 and 380 pages. Like, they're big books. The most recent one, I think, is more like 50 pages, and it's called The 3 Pillars of Wholesaling. You guys, if you're listening or watching, you can get a free copy over at discountpropertyinvestor.com. And it's about the 3 things that we mentioned on this show: marketing to motivated sellers, making offers, and following up. And it's the 3 pillars. Like, we look at this like a bar stool. Like, if you're not doing all 3 of these consistently, you're really not operating your business in a good manner or optimally, right? You need all 3 of those things to successfully turn leads into deals, right? How do you get the lead? You market. How do you convert it into a deal? You make an offer. And if you can't get the offer accepted, then you just keep following up and repeat and repeat and repeat till you can. It's literally that simple. So 3 books. And the podcast is, of course, Discount Property Investor, which I had mentioned. And I just have a passion for investing, Josh, and helping people and teaching and coaching and, and doing shows like this. I really, really enjoy podcasts. So again, thank you so much for having me. And I'm really grateful for your time.
Man, guys, that was a fantastic show. David can definitely talk. He's unlike a lot of the other guests that we've had. He answered a lot of my questions before they even kind of came out, which I think is amazing. I think it's amazing that he can take one particular question and steer the conversation from his own perspective, but also be able to have a lot of golden nuggets, you could say, of information inside of that one question and kind of answer all the intricacies of what he said. And I think that, as you guys heard, I think that helped us a lot. It might have helped you a lot. I know it helped me a lot. I got a deeper understanding of not only wholesaling, I kind of already knew what wholesaling was, but on a grander scale, kind of where I'm at personally with the deals that we're looking at, these multi-million-dollar apartment complexes. I'd always thought that wholesaling was a possibility, never had entertained it too much, but now hearing the success that he's had and hearing some of the details and the deep intricacies and inner workings of how this stuff works, I think I'm going to start considering a lot of these deals that come our way, that come into the pipeline, start considering them a little deeper for potential wholesale opportunities. Like maybe we will get this under contract and just try to sell it to someone else, because maybe it doesn't make sense for us, but maybe it can make sense for someone else. We can make a little spread there. Everyone can win, and it's not just a loss of saying, hey, forget about it, I'm not interested. Keeping your options open, I think, is something that I have really learned today in this particular episode. So that's all we got for you guys this week. Hope you enjoyed it. Do not forget to give us a 5-star rating and review. It will be very much appreciated. It will continue to grow our reach so that more listeners like yourself can learn exactly what we're talking about today. I mean, obviously we're not talking about wholesaling every episode, but they can learn new things. They can learn new ways of thinking about wholesaling if they already knew about wholesaling. Just continually educating yourself is something that we're continuing to push to you guys, as well as all the other listeners that haven't found out about us yet. So that's where the ratings and the reviews come in. So all I got for you guys today is Josh Ferrari signing off.